Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. Today is Monday, May 12th for the School District of Waukesha. Can we verify that the meeting has been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
We are now at the time for where there's an opportunity for the public to speak. Do we have any who signed up to speak?
We have none.
Okay. Before we get started into our action items, with the committee's consent, I would like to remove policy 6321 from the agenda. There's been some new information that is updated that we will present then next month. Okay, seeing no concerns. We are moving into our action items for this evening. The first action item is the approval of minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Dr. Piasek, seconded by Mr. Wad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, passes 5-0. Moving to the next action item, which is the approval of the vouchers. Did we have any questions this month?
We did. We had two. The first one was related to Economowalk Developmental. The question was to just get a little bit more information regarding that. This is one of our alternate placement organizations. This was the March tuition. You'll also see it, or you may know it more also as Genesee Lake School. The second one was a double question, same item. $20,000 expenditure for Visionary Studios. That is specific to eAchieve. It is marketing through Google Ads, radio, and billboards. Were there any further questions?
Okay, seeing none, I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the vouchers.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Wad, seconded by Mr. Harland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Passes 5-0. The next action item is the North High School Drainage Project land transfer agreements with the city of Waukesha.
Yeah, for the last few months, we've been trying to craft this document with the city, and we finally have a mutually agreed upon document for the committee to consider. We also have Tyler Manley from Axley who helped craft this, so he's here to answer any questions you might have on it. Otherwise, this completes the land transfers between the city and the school district of Waukesha related to the work out at North High School.
And to clarify, there's nothing new. This is the official culmination of the transfer of the land agreements based on everything that we've agreed to throughout the course.
Correct.
Is there any questions, comments? Mrs. Voigt?
I was happy to see that they have a reference at the end that, to the whole agreement in item 23 that if this agreement is effective retroactive to March 1st, because this is something we've been talking about, like retroactive to March 1st of last year even, So this is like definitely, to your point, it's comprehensive, things we've been talking about for a long time.
Indeed. Mr. Wad?
And just for the benefit of those watching, the primary parcel of land that's being transferred to the city is the North Auxiliary Parking Lot, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mrs. Voigt?
I was going to say, I was impressed to see it listed as a $529,250 value.
They are getting value in return as we expect the same.
Just a clarification, what is the usefulness of that through the end of the school year? I haven't.
We should, the auxiliary parking lot, how much access we'd have. With what we've had through the end of the year, and then after that, I don't think we can promise that anymore.
Okay.
Okay, see no other discussion, I'd be looking for a motion. Mrs. Voigt?
I move that we approve the North High School Drainage Project land transfer agreements with the city of Waukesha as presented.
Second.
It has been motioned by Mrs. Voigt, seconded by Mr. Harland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Passes 5-0. The next action item is a designation of fund balance for future core curriculum resources.
Yeah, back in January, Jen and I presented on a theory or approach to pre-funding our core curriculum adoptions into the future by designating fund balance going forward. And I just included the one slide that kind of mapped out what we saw in theory. I didn't include the entire PowerPoint for you. But what we're recommending right now is, and I see this as an annual conversation going forward, either after the audit or once we get closer or right after year end, where we could continue to discuss our long-term goal with this. But for now, we're looking to have the designation be $1.5 million set aside for the adoption of core curriculum into the future. I have the last attachment kind of shows you where we have restricted or assigned fund balances to kind of give you what's going to happen accounting-wise. And then what will happen in the future when Jen comes up on a big adoption, we'll adopt a negative budget to use that fund balance. So it should flow really easy, and I think we have a really solid plan in place.
And just to clarify, through the different categories of fund balance reserves, this is going to be considered as assigned, meaning it's restricted, but should we need it for something else, it can be pulled.
Correct.
Can I,
Yep, Dr.
thank
Pasko.
you. What would be a disadvantage to having it as a committed amount? Only that we would have to come back and take a vote to release it?
We had conversations with our auditor, and this is what they recommended for this purpose. So we've just followed their lead.
Do you know why?
I don't know if I remember the exact rationale. I'm trying to bring a policy here. And you asked about restricted?
Committed versus assigned?
This was actually an agreement or a understanding between not only our auditor, but also DPI. He did reach out to DPI also to get a confirmation that he was thinking of this correctly.
And I don't remember the rationale exactly between the two. We just looked for guidance, so it wouldn't become an audit issue at the end of the year.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes, so a couple of questions, just to clarify my understanding. So this $1.5 million earmark for core curriculum, is that for a particular budget year?
No, it'll just sit in fund balance until, we'll follow the schedule that was included in that presentation. And that's our guesstimate of when those purchases will be made. And then we'll just utilize it, just as we would health insurance reserves or anything. If we have a bad claims year, we utilize it, and if not, it just sits on our balance sheet.
Okay, so just to follow up, that would mean that if for whatever reason we didn't need to make an expenditure in 25-26 budget for core curriculum, that 500,000 would just remain in the fund and we can use it in a future year, but we're not committed to spending it.
Correct, correct.
And then just one last item. So this is not assigned to any particular core curriculum purchase at this time. It's there for when we do need to make a particular.
Yeah, we discussed that, and we agreed that it should be tied to what everyone, I think, commonly refers to as core curriculum, because if we start using it on smaller, you're never going to build up the fund balance if you're using it as you go. So we're seeing this as seed money, and I think the first adoption is 3 or 4 years out. And by that time, we hope to add maybe an equivalent number to 1.5 million at least to that pool of money.
So that could be for new curriculum, it could be for renewal of licensing of existing
Yep,
curriculum.
as long as it's related to core curriculum.
Okay.
Correct.
I can add a few more details if that's
Sure,
okay.
yeah.
The idea is right now we do review curriculum for each subject at the different levels at different times. So high school math, middle school math, elementary math may be at different times. With putting money aside, our hope is to focus on those larger adoptions for literacy and math in between now and the next few years, like 28, 29, to save up some money so that we can have a K-12 review for literacy or math. But like Darren said, it may help us along the way. Between now and then, we'd also have teaching and learning funds allocated for annual curriculum pieces as well as other adoptions. So it's not that we wouldn't do any other adoptions until we use this money. So we've kind of mapped out like a short-term and a long-term plan approach for the curriculum.
Agree, and I think it's a really important thing to highlight that use of ESSER funds was roughly $6 million over a 2.5, 3-year period, that those will all come to renew relatively within the same time cycles, depending on whether or not we did a 6, 7, or 8-year rollout. And so this goal is to start having the annual discussions to build the balance, to use it for when these are coming up for renewals. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, so, Ms. Gunderman, just to kind of follow up on that point, you said there's still going to be budget assigned to T&L for curriculum purchases. Is there something that will delineate between that which is budgeted for in T&L and that which would come from the fund balance that we save up?
Yes, what we put together and what we presented at Teaching and Learning is really an approach to our curriculum review cycle. And so what we are trying to do is to move literacy and math, both subject areas, to be reviewed and adopted on different years. But for math and for literacy, that we do a K-12 review and adoption rather than a high school 1 year, middle school the next, elementary the next, and then the same for math. Doing that, K-12. So likely, when it comes to such a big expense, we would likely use the fund balance. And then other subjects like science or social studies or AP courses, we would put in our regular budget based on our timeline and how things change with standards and curriculum resources.
And I think you'll notice the biggest thing is the negative budget we'll be adopting, because we always footnote that in our financial book, that, we'll put in there the math, K-12 math adoption or whatever it is, to make sure everyone can track what we're doing with the funds. And then we usually do a fund balance report once a year, just to show where we are. And I think it'd be also be built into that, if that balance is being carried forward.
I'm not aware of any statutory or reporting reasons why. I think the difference, in my understanding, between assigned and committed is the formal action piece. But there's not anything, like restricted is related to if someone gives us funding for a certain purpose. The committed is our money, and we're making a commitment per vote to use it a certain way. In order to not use it that way, you have to vote to reverse it. If we say that it's assigned, we're saying that we really want to use it this way, but we're not going to have to take an action to release the funding for a different purpose. So I think what's missing for me is that accountability, other than agreeing that we're going to do the right thing and saying that this is our intent to use the funding this way. But if the intent is set by the board, then, and we have this agendized as an action, right, to restrict it with a specific intent. What are scenarios where this money might be used for a different intent without a board discussion? It may not be necessary for us to take the vote to have it committed to the purpose unless we think that we're going to have to release it at some point.
I guess how I look at this is you are taking action to spend this money when you adopt the budget. And that's when that, I don't know of a scenario. Take a look at our health insurance reserves. That hasn't moved in years. And I can't come up with a scenario other than health claims where that number would change, and it hasn't changed because there's been no authorization to utilize that. So I looked at it as the board, upon the adoption of the annual budget, as assigning or releasing those funds to be used. So I don't know what scenario where that would not be true.
So drawing from reserves for a specific expenditure.
It would come, let's say, I think Verkada we did out of fund balance, if I recall. That came out of unassigned fund balance. It didn't come out of a reserved or designated fund balance. So, but I don't know if there's anything stopping us from doing committed, besides you'd have to take an action and then adopt a budget.
Mr. Webb?
Yeah, but did we not take a vote to spend for Verkada? Wasn't there a specific action taken? I'm just trying to understand the discussion here. What would be the difference between what I assume would be an action to spend money for curriculum renewals or curriculum purchases versus the funds being in there, but they're being spent without a board approval? Are there things that we spend money on out of the general fund that we don't vote on?
Everything's adopted into the budget, but anytime we've used fund balance, we've made it a separate line item. But like in Verkada, we had to approve, are we interested in doing Verkada, right?
Right.
And then we footnoted it within that budget that it would be coming out of fund balance, is how we've done it. Again, I don't know if, I'm not saying we don't do committed, I guess I don't really have a hard stance on it. I was following the auditor's lead on that. But in this instance, T&L at some point approves the adoption, right? And then you approve an annual budget. I'm not sure what other safeguards are needed, but if we want to make it committed, we can, I suppose we could do that as well.
Dr.
I
Piasek?
think with Verkada, there's also a contract and purchase, and I think the same would be true of adopting curriculum and saying that we're going to allocate fund balance to pay for
Correct.
that, so. So I think what's important is when we say the intent and the way the policy reads, which I keep losing my internet connection, the way the policy reads, the intent is set by the committee or the board or somebody else. So I think it's important that the action that we take to assign it is the board's intent. And that way, if the intent changes, we're clear that that's a board decision. And it's also amazing that we're doing this. So I'm super excited
Oh, yeah.
about the proactiveness of it. I just want to make sure that we get it right when we set the funding aside.
No, not that we're borrowing money, but rating agencies and stuff love this kind of planning, right?
Mr. Webb?
Yeah, just one final question. So looking back to before we received the ESSER funds and we made the substantial commitment we did to curriculum upgrades, what was the budget we typically had on an annual basis for curriculum? And
They're
how much planning did we do for future curriculum purchases?
I think what we're doing now is night and day different than what had occurred. As I look back, and we didn't have these large conversations, we didn't, the previous T&L director was much cheaper apparently than the current one. She likes to do these big adoptions, but we really didn't have a structure. And I think Jen's brought that to us.
I can speak to that too a little. Years ago, when we were in school, we had textbooks. You didn't have to renew it. You really didn't. You could sit and decide not to renew a resource for 7 to 10 years. And so once we started going with our Waukesha One work with the iPads, then we got it more into the digital subscriptions, digital textbooks, which is going very well. And nowadays, whether you have any device, there is a digital component, and the companies have a right that does expire. So it's just really a different game now in the resource area. I would say one of the things that has been also different is that in partnership with Teaching and Learning and Darren and his whole team, we've flipped it to really having conversations and taking a zero-based budgeting approach to teaching and learning, rather than this is how much is given to teaching and learning, make it work. We flipped that and said, okay, if we have these annual costs, this is how much we need for this. Then we've been able to say, like for next year, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but we already have plans for how much would be coming out of teaching and learning for next year's potential adoptions. And then this is just that other bigger piece on top of it. So we've really flipped the script. And I think it's exciting. It's exciting that we're doing this. It's a different approach, other than just getting a certain dollar amount and making do and figuring out what are the priorities. So.
Right, so if I can just follow up on that, I think the point I was trying to illuminate by asking that is the change in direction this board has made to committing to structured, sequenced curriculum that is used across the district, and that was just not something that I believe we were doing at all since we made the investment we did with the ESSER funds. And I guess I'll tie this all together by saying, now committing to this setting aside of funds on an annual basis to ensure we don't fall into that trap of just trying to make do, and instead planning so that we can continue to build our curriculum and build our, the rigorousness of our curriculum and being able to use it across the district is, I think, the next important step that we're taking from a curriculum perspective. So I think this is great.
Dr. Piasek?
I'd like to move to approve the designation of $1.5 million of Fund 10 fund balance as committed fund balance for the sole purpose of the acquisition of core curriculum resources.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Dr. Piasek, seconded by Mr. Wad. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Passes 5-0. All right, the next action item for this evening is the We Energies easements for the Meadowbrook and Bethesda campuses.
Yeah, we have two easements that We Energies has asked. One is to come across at Bethesda, and what they're doing there is it's aerial lines now, and they're going underground. And then at Meadowbrook, they're bringing new power supply to our building, because Kyle's here to answer any questions you have on this, but because we've struggled with power out at Meadowbrook for years, so we see no reason to approve either one of these easements. But Kyle, I don't know if you have anything to add beyond that.
With, especially the Meadowbrook, that's a big upgrade for us. But they're actually taking a look at that, so it's a good one.
Dr. Piasek?
It's also going to help the communities around those schools, so, yeah. Speaking from experience, what's that? Yeah.
I live very close to that part of it.
Grateful.
Is there any other questions? When is the start and end, and are they committed to keeping within that time constraint?
They haven't given us a start and end date. I think the next step that they would send out their surveyors to get some more information. This is really just a basic layout of what they're looking to do. I can update on dates and times once I have that.
Yeah, I would like that, thank you. Mr. Wad?
I would move to approve the We Energies easements for the Meadowbrook and Bethesda campuses.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Wad, seconded by Mr. Harland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. It passes 5-0. And the next action item for this evening is Policy 7450, Property Inventory.
So this policy was an upgrade, actually, that came from the management letter from last year's audit. And it was, we were requested to include, let me get the policy up here, sorry. We were asked to include useful life of certain assets, which we did not have in our policy before. Additionally, since we were looking at this, we do know that DPI has increased their capital asset threshold to $10,000, and so we have included that as a change at this point in time as well.
Okay, so with the change in the useful lives, are we making a change to the useful lives of any assets that are on the books? And if so, have we done that?
We have not done that.
Okay, when will we do that and make the adjustments?
I did reach out to our auditor and asked about the impact to our financials if we were to change our threshold. And he did say that it would be a reduction to the assets of over 716,000. But for reference, this calculation is a difference in the accumulated depreciation of those assets. So there will be no changes to our fund financials.
Okay. Do we know what the current useful lives are for some of these?
They are not very consistent. I don't have that offhand, though.
I'd like to know what our timeline is to get this implemented and,
It's just cleanup of the audit stuff, so we're just bringing them forward when we get the okay from auditors, and get feedback and a draft for you to consider.
any other questions? This is good stuff, guys.
So I have a question.
But Dr. Passer?
I assume we have assets that sit in the 5 to 10. So what happens with those?
The ones that are on our books now won't be adjusted out. Because
We're not going to continue to depreciate those or do anything.
we would probably complete any depreciation that's left, but no assets below the $10,000 threshold would be added. So it's just looking forward.
Do we know the volume of things that's sitting in that? I mean, those are always the onesie-twosie things that get really tedious to track, but do we know in aggregate that could be a larger sum of value?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot there, because a lot of times we bundle projects. If you buy 100 iPads or whatever, that's considered one asset, and we depreciate that out. We don't do sync one by one. So to have something fall in that $5,000 to $10,000 range and not have it be part of a project, I don't think there's probably much there. But if you're talking multiple years, there could be some dollar value there. I just don't really have an estimate of what that is. And again, it doesn't impact our fund accounting. It's the depreciation side in terms of paying our bills.
So I thought the audit finding was specific about not having a policy to address this, which we then brought this policy to their attention. And then the changes to the policy are somewhat minor.
It was the useful life part that we didn't have. We didn't have them listed.
Okay. Just at the end, okay.
And then with DPI changing the threshold to $10,000, we thought, well, is this the time to do that since we're reviewing the policy?
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? Not, this is Mrs. White.
You don't have anything listed for like the kitchen equipment useful life. Would that be something that would need to be added?
The kitchen equipment would fall under the machinery and equipment area.
So not a separate item?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
And furniture and fixtures.
So that needs to be formatted or just adjusted? Because I guess I'm seeing what she's seeing, like, we've got machinery and equipment, and then recreational equipment, 20 years, and then we move to fixtures, 10, and then phone and kitchen don't have anything.
They fall under the 10, so I can certainly add that, but they do fall under the 10.
Well, okay,
So
so
those are
then,
specific items, those are
Gotcha.
possible specific items under furniture and fixtures.
okay, not machinery, well,
Sorry, I misspoke. I said
okay.
Machinery, yes.
That makes sense. So recreational equipment is not a subcategory of machinery and equipment, it's just a second line.
The example that I received, yeah, it is a separate item, but yeah,
I think there's some formatting issues maybe with the table that would make it clearer.
okay. I can go back and I can adjust those so that it's more legible, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like there's, pretty much everything is in the 10,000 range with the exception of the land improvements.
Correct. Mm-hmm, yep.
Okay.
Any other discussions or points? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
Can I clarify? A motion on it as presented or with the with the formatting changes to the table?
I would recommend then with the changes. So it's not uncommon to have, like, the parents, right? So includes da, 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 da. And so if we're talking about these, I mean, we can do the, like, the broadening of the categories or do the indentation, so we understand that we're saying that the phone system and kitchen equipment is a subset of the furnitures and fixtures. Or parent it. That seems to be a point of confusion that I
Yes.
would say. So I would say for a motion that it should include that with the parent and the correct formatting so that we can see the subcategories under the category.
I would like that. I think there's also some spacing questions, like there's spaces between, so it looks like some topics are bundled together. It's not clear if they are or not.
Mr. Wad?
What is the urgency of pushing this through tonight? Is this something where perhaps we could bring it back next month and review that table?
We would have no problem with that.
It should be easy.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. We don't need an action item to do that, right? We don't
We do
need
not.
to table it?
We do not.
Okay.
Okay. Moving into our discussion or information items. Next is the monthly budget report.
Okay. In April, we did receive our 4.8 million of our tax levy, so continuing to receive that as expected. We also made our, what I understand to be our second last principal debt payment on April 1st of 5.795 million, and our correlating or corresponding interest of 293,175. Interest rates actually held steady this past month, interestingly enough, and other than that, if there are any questions, I am certainly open to have them.
Seeing none, we can move into our next discussion item, which is the district long-range budget planning, optimizing the future, Phase 2.
Just one quick comment on the long range, or our debt payments. I do plan on having PMA come in next month and map out what it's going to look like leading into the payoff of the debt next April, and talk about the aid impact and those types of things. So we'll have additional information related to that.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to walk us through our Phase 2 proposal, and it'll be a brief review of Phase 1 and our overall process, and then a look into what Phase 2 we plan to look like. We just wanted to start with this slide again. We think it's very critically important that people continue to understand that this is not just a school district of Waukesha situation. It's much bigger than that. It's a Wisconsin issue. It's a United States issue. And we've talked in our information sharing sessions in phase one about being a top 10 school district, many of the other top 10 school districts being included in this list of already talking about this or currently talking about it as well, along with our neighbors in Kettle Moraine who are about a month in front of us. So continues to be a challenge primarily due to the decline in the birth rate since 2007 in the United States, the last 20 years in Wisconsin, and also here in Waukesha County a little bit quicker than the state of Wisconsin. As a high-level overview, we started in phase one with the information sharing sessions. I'll give you some data on those here in just a moment. And our primary goal there was to really tell the story of the school district of Waukesha in terms of the enrollment and the decline due to the birth rate, the steps that we've taken to date to address that, and then ultimately our plan for the rest of the year of 2025. We're now poised to begin phase two, which was the gathering input phase. So we are currently working on some final plan proposals that hit those enrollment targets of a 10 to 15% capacity reduction across the district. And then we'll follow those up once those are done with some internal and external community input sessions, leading then ultimately to the end of this calendar year with a presentation, presenting of a recommendation, I should say, to the board for your considered approval. So in phase one, we hosted 6 sessions for staff in the mid part of April, and then 3 sessions for our parents and the community. And I overviewed high level already what the purpose of those sessions were. And so just to give you an overview of how those went, for the staff sessions, we had 36 people, staff members who attended the 6 sessions. We used the QR code to collect the questions that we're putting the answers together to. I have a slide coming up on that. And then in our community and parent sessions, we had approximately 55 people who attended our 3 sessions. And again, we used the QR code. Our website continues to develop with resources. So we have the capacity studies, we have our enrollment studies. Darren and I have a voiceover of the actual information sharing program, and then we also have a video recording of our Butler session that we did on May 1st for the community. So people are able to watch those at their convenience. And we've had over 100 questions that have come in through the QR code. And so we are working on answering those and creating the frequently asked question document. Ms. Gennerman has done a nice job clumping them, but we will answer all of the ones that come in. And when we have that ready to roll, we will upload that to our website as well. And as I said earlier, we're now in the phase 2 part of this process, which is gathering input. And so this is how we've scripted it out. We have an opportunity with our school leadership teams on Friday, June 13th. That's our strategic planning day in the district. And we've designated some time in the afternoon to that be our first group that we start to gather input from. Those are people that are dedicated to their schools. That will be a good start for us. We then have a date of June 24th where we wanted to have an opportunity to talk with our Discover SDW community group in the morning, our Teacher Superintendent Advisory Committee members in the afternoon, and then our Parent Superintendent Advisory Council members in the evening to be able to get their feedback on the plans. And then we have a number of dates in July, including July 19th, which is a Saturday, where we'll have a couple of different morning sessions, and I'll talk about what those are going to look like here in just a minute, where those are hour-and-a-half sessions that we will have opportunities for gathering feedback from our parents and our community. So in those sessions, there'll be an hour and a half. We'll do a welcome. We'll do a high-level overview of what Phase 2 is. We'll talk about the information that we used to come up with the options that we ultimately present. And then we will have small group table discussions where we rotate people between the tables, each table being a different option, for them to give us feedback on the strengths of that plan, on the challenges with that plan, and any future ideas they might have that could improve that plan. And then ultimately, we'll do a wrap-up at the end, and we envision that taking, like I said, about 90 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to have people sign up to be part of those sessions so that we can have manageable numbers when we rotate people through the tables, so that everybody's voice can be heard. And if we need to offer more because there's demand, we certainly will do that in order to make sure that people have the opportunity to talk with us. And so part of this also will be, since it's over the summer months, will include a survey. I think we've talked about the survey before. That's under construction. And so once the survey is done, it'll be available to all of our stakeholder groups, so including our staff, our parents, and community members. And then the QR code for signing up for those roundtable sessions that I just described is going to debut in the community-wide newsletter that we're just actually putting the finishing touches on this week, and that'll be in mailboxes within the next 2 weeks. So that's where we'll have it. We'll also have it on the website for people to access, and we'll use some social media opportunities as well. So that's where we're at. Like I said, we're in the process of designing those options, and we're going to look very much forward to having the opportunity for the general public and our staff to give us feedback on those options, so that ultimately we get to a point where we can bring something that we believe is fully vetted and is in the best interest of the school district of Waukesha to you in the later part of 2025. So I'll stop there and answer any questions, or between Darren and Ms. Genderman and I, we can all try.
Mr. Wad?
Maybe I missed it in your presentation, Dr. Siebert, but I didn't see the date in which the board will get its first look at the proposed plans. When would the board see those for the first time?
To be determined. We're still working on getting those. You'll see them before any of the gathering input happens.
That was
But
kind of where I was going with that.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Piasek?
Thank you. I do just want to commend the administrative team for the community sessions that you've had, the information sharing. I think there were a lot of questions that came in that you answered as transparently and well as we could, and I know that you're going back to try to follow up on any that we couldn't. So I think it was worth taking the time to get the information out, to hear from the people who had a focused interest on where we were at with all the data. And so I found it very helpful. And I know it took some extra time, but I appreciate you doing that. And
thank you.
for those folks that came and participated, I hope that they got their questions answered. And I think there were some that had expectation that there would be options shared right out of the gate. And I think this is the right approach to kind of set the stage for where we're at, and then really contemplate what could be, and then also now allow the community the opportunity to weigh in on some of that too. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dr. Piasek. It was our pleasure to do it. We thought it was a solid process too, like being able, as you said, being able to tell the story. And we found with most people, and this is the way we kind of wrapped up the presentations, that most people seem to see the reality in what we're facing, and that we are not alone, and that this is a challenge that multiple school districts face. And then we also acknowledge that as we get into phase 2, there's going to be an emotional aspect that's going to be relatively prevalent, we anticipate. And so it's going to be a balance of remembering that reality with balancing those emotions and finding the sweet spot, if you will, in between those two things, which we'll do our best to achieve.
Mr. Wad?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Dr. Siebert, do we have any idea what kind of traffic the website has been seeing since we started putting information up, or maybe specifically the presentations and the frequently asked questions document? Do we know, are a lot of people coming in to look? And
Well, the frequently asked question document isn't up yet, so we're still developing it and
Okay.
answering all the questions. I can find out what the traffic has been on both the voiceover and the Butler session, and report that out to the committee and to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or discussions? Okay, I would echo, attending a couple of the community sessions. I thought the presentations were extremely well done. I think that the information shared and from, just the groups that were there, I think there is a very strong understanding that we are not alone and that this is something that we have to face. But the reality is providing a top-notch education is still going to happen with less buildings and hopefully dedicated costs that go to the students and the staff versus underutilized buildings. And I think that's a really important message to share, is that we're doing the right things at the right times, in the right way, seeking community involvement. I thought they were extremely well done, so I'm looking forward to this next phase.
Oh, well, thank you, Mrs. Kozlowski, and we've made it very clear in all the sessions that we're not in a crisis, right? This is a proactive planning process. We're taking matters into our own hands. We talked about it earlier with curriculum. We can plan for our future, right? And this is another example of how we're trying to do that to create the viable future that we know we can have. And you're right, we can do it because of the curriculum, because of the strength of our staff, because of the continuity and the synergy we've built across the system. The number of buildings is not nearly as important as all of that work that aligns us as a school system.
Agree. Okay, seeing nothing else, do we have any recommendations for future committee meetings? Mrs. White?
On the minutes, it looks like there had been a reference that we would be talking about what does it say? Reversal of Act 10, the impact it'll have as far as finances. It was supposed to be on this month's agenda. It was the last item under other business last time. And I think with our very full agenda for tonight, I was just wondering if that should be brought forward to the next month.
We can take a look at it. And again, it's assuming that we have information that can actually share and be presentful with knowing what we really don't know. Okay, seeing nothing else, we do have a need to adjourn into executive session, so I'd be looking for someone to motion that in. Mr. Wad?
I would move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Wad, seconded by Mr. Harland. Tanya, can you roll call us in?
Mrs. Boyd?
Aye.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Aye.
Mr. Herlin?
Aye.
Dr. Piasek?
Aye.
And Mr. Wad?
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session.